It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I am your host, private investigator Ed Opperman, and this show is brought to you by emailrevealer.com and our newest sponsor, michiganmushrooms.net. Hey, check out michiganmushrooms.net at their website and also on their Facebook page at Michigan Mushrooms LLC. If this is the first time you're listening to our show, because I know we picked up a whole bunch of new stations this week, please visit oppermanreport.com. Check out the member section. We have a lot of content in the member section where you can subscribe and become a member. And it's exclusive content that you can only get by becoming a member. But also, too, by becoming a member, you support the shows that we do on Friday night and during the week. We do free shows on Friday night. We do free shows Saturday and Sunday, all kinds of stuff to support activists and social causes and stuff that we're trying to do here. So by supporting the show, by becoming a member, you support the rest of this stuff, too. You know, we had a really big guest last week. We got a huge guest tonight. And we got a big guest next week. Next week coming up is Billy Hayes from Midnight Express. After that, we have Dr. Fred Whitehurst, who's an FBI whistleblower, sued the FBI, collected $2 million, and he's worked on everything from Waco, OJ, TWA 800. So we have a lineup of superstars this month. This is the best month we've ever had. Tonight, we have ILYASAH Shabazz. She's the third daughter of Malcolm X and Dr. Betty Shabazz. As you know, everyone who knows me knows that Malcolm X is a huge hero of mine. Ever since I was a kid, I used to sit home and listen to WBAI and listen to I was like 14, 15, 16 years old, and they used to replay the speeches. And such an inspiration to my life and what I've dedicated my life to. So it's a real honor to have ILYASAH Shabazz on our show today. She's written 3 books about her dad, which, guess what, I don't have pulled up. One is, I think is good. ILYASAH Shabazz, are you there?
I'm here. You are too much, Ed. Thank you for having me. It's really an honor. My 3 books?
Yes.
One of them, the first one is Growing Up X. The second one is, you want me to go down the line, or you want me to just, let you...
I don't have it pulled up, so please do it for me.
Okay. So my first book is Growing Up X. It's a coming-of-age memoir about one of 6 daughters of Malcolm X and Dr. Betty Shabazz. And then my second book is a children's illustration book, and it's Malcolm Little, the boy who would grow up to become Malcolm X, and that's one of my favorites. And my third book is X, a Novel, which is a young adult book, and it's the adolescent journey of my father.
Now, there's links to all 3 books on the Opperman Report Blogspot blog and also in the bookstore on oppermanreport.com. Now, if you go to the blog as well, there's a photo of ILYASAH Shabazz, and you would not believe it, because I don't want to give anything away, but we're about the same age. I look like your grandfather, okay? And this is a woman who glows. She's radiant, and I've been listening to your speeches all day long, and I saw recent videos from just last week, a couple of weeks ago, so I know this is a recent picture. This is no trick, okay?
You know, it's so funny because where was I? I was just at a university, and the entire time during my speech was this humongous picture behind me. It was a screen. And, I couldn't help but whisper to a friend of mine, it's such a good thing I use a recent photo, because if I use, an older photo and, you stand there in front of the photo, it wouldn't be,
You know what? That's so true. I was just at a demonstration this week. I think it was Monday night for $15 an hour, the minimum wage. And the local paper took a picture of me, and my God, you look at this. I look like such a grumpy old man.
I'm sure you don't look like a grumpy old man.
I can take a good picture, but this was a candid shot of me.
Right.
It wasn't my best. So give it first before we get into all the stuff, okay? Because I've heard so much. I've listened to all your shows today, all your interviews, just about everything I could find on you, and I'm just so impressed. But what about you? What are you doing today? Are you married? Do you have kids and stuff?
Well, let's see. Yesterday, I teach at John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York City.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, and so yesterday, I've got these, I do it twice a week, and then I travel mostly every other day. And, I was very fortunate that my agent came in town. We had a guest teacher, Al Sharpton, because I'm teaching criminal justice, law and institutional treatment, and the administration of correction programs for juveniles. So it was so appropriate. I want to make sure that young people understand the importance of the civil rights movement amongst many other things. And go ahead. Do I hear you trying to say something?
No, I'm listening.
Oh, okay. And so, So yesterday it was filled with teaching, and it was exciting time for my students. And then from there we went to Scarsdale Middle School to speak to the middle school students there. And it was an exhausting day. I hadn't seen my agent in a little bit of time. So then we reviewed a couple of things, and I absolutely passed out. Mm-hmm. I absolutely passed out to wake up to today and sort of continue, all of these things that I have, just a bunch of things, and here I am with you.
I hear you. It never ends. But we have to. You know what I mean? We have to.
Absolutely.
We have to. Especially, I can imagine the pressure on you, trying to live up to your dad's legacy, your mom and dad's legacy. Your mom alone, by the way, would be a historical figure just without your dad.
Right. My mother was really, really wonderful. But I won't say, I'd like to say that it's not pressure for me because I'm so grateful to have both Malcolm X and Dr. Betty Shabazz as my parents. But I think the pressure sometimes comes in wanting to make sure that I'm not a disservice to my students and not a disservice, to any audience. But, I wouldn't really, I don't like to even think that I live under any kind of pressure because I think when I was younger in college, coming into being the daughter of ... was a little bit overwhelming, but then, I was able to just manage that.
Now, a lot of people don't realize, but you actually grew up with Martin Luther King's kids and Medgar Evers' kids as well. You all grew up as a close...
Well, we were friends. Our parents, actually our mothers were very close. A lot of people think that, Malcolm X and Dr. King were polar opposites, which, of course, they were fighting for the same thing. And, whenever you have, compassionate young men, who sacrifice their life for the betterment of humanity, all of these things that we learn about Dr. King, Medgar Evers, and Malcolm X, quite naturally, the wives are going to have similar experiences, expectations, challenges, etc. And so our mothers, were very close.
And you can imagine you all lived through the same tragedy.
Right, yeah. Exactly.
So give us an idea, because I know a big part of your focus is you want to bring out the truth about your dad's childhood and his grandparents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. So what was important to me with The Boy Who Grew Up to Become Malcolm X, this children's book, a lot of people were like, a children's book about Malcolm X, not realizing that we all grow up, we all start off as children, and it's the adults around us who ultimately play a role in whomever we become. And my father was very fortunate that his parents They were activists. They were a young couple navigating through Jim Crow, instilling specific values in their children, the values of compassion, of seeing yourself as, being able to see yourself as a global citizen. My grandmother instilled in her children leadership values, and so this book celebrates all of those things. My father's father was the president of the Midwestern chapter of the Marcus Garvey movement, which was the Universal Negro Improvement Association in the 1920s, which commanded millions of followers. And he was influential in getting Marcus Garvey out of jail for the alleged mail fraud. He wrote a letter to then President Coolidge and explained who Marcus Garvey was and that he committed no crime, and recommended that he release him from jail. And a few months later, he was released from jail. So when you read this letter, which is floating online somewhere, from Earl Little, Malcolm X's father, you get to see that his father was so similar to who Malcolm became. And my father's mother was the national recording secretary for this organization that commanded millions of followers. And so I usually tell people, when you think of young activist parents, conscious, forward-thinking, compassionate, understanding the importance of education, self-reliance, self-love, leadership, all of these things, you make sure you instill specific values in your children. And so those were the values that were instilled in my father. And what happened is the Black Legion, which was a splinter group in the 1930s to the KKK, they killed his father. They put him on a train track. They let the trolley run him over, and then years later they put his mother in an institution. And so Malcolm is sort of out there with his siblings, and they're separated, and Malcolm is sent to a different family, juvenile delinquent.
How old was he when family? How old was he when his dad was killed on the train tracks?
He was 6 years old. It was 1931.
Oh my God! Okay.
Yeah, it was 60 to 6 years old, and but Malcolm would still, in spite of that, go on to become the president of his 7th grade class. So now he's 12, right? He would go to become the president of his class, and when his teacher asks him, "Who do you want to be when you grow up?" and he says, "I want to be a lawyer," because he sees his father, in this role of helping people. And, he could have said, I want to be an athlete, or I want to be a fireman or a policeman. And there's nothing wrong with any of those careers, of course, but he says, I want to be a lawyer, because that's how he saw his dad. And when his teacher says that you can't be a lawyer, you have to be realistic for a Negro, that was pretty painful. And, often when you're young and in pain, and, you don't say, oh, I'm in pain, let me go get a quality education. Oh, I'm in pain, let me go surround myself by love and peace. Sometimes you go into a self-destructive mode, and that's what happened. A year or so later, my father goes and he lives with his sister, 14 years old. And that's where my next book comes in. But I'll let you ask me some questions.
Well, yeah, give us an idea. What year was it when this teacher told him that he couldn't become a lawyer?
I believe 13, because he dropped out of school shortly after.
Yeah, but what year would that have been? Not his age.
Oh, that would have been 1932.
Oh, 1932, okay. And was it a black teacher or a white teacher?
I'm sorry, 1925, 13. That would be like 1938.
Okay, 1938. And was it a black teacher or a white teacher?
Oh, come on. What do you think?
I don't know. I guess a black teacher.
Well, in the Midwest, he was the only he was the only African-American in his class, right?
Right.
So most of the teachers, at that time would be white, because most of the schools were segregated.
So even back in the 30s, he was in an integrated school.
back in the 30s, he was the only African American in his school.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now
they lived in the Midwest. His father, purchased land that was reserved for whites only. They were chased out from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. They were chased out of Omaha, Nebraska. And ultimately he lived in East Lansing, Michigan, and they killed him in East Lansing, Michigan.
Really, the grandfather?
Yes, and he was just in his 30s when he was killed.
Hey, I'm going to jump off topic here for a second because you mentioned Michigan, Are you familiar with the case of the Reverend Ed Pinkney up in Michigan?
No, I don't think I am. Say that again, the
Reverend Ed Pinkney up in Michigan. He was in Benton Harbor, Michigan. He's an activist of Banco, bhbanco.org, and he was trying to have a mayor recalled over there, so he was having a recall petition. He's 67 years old, and he's been sentenced to 2 to 10 years in this Michigan prison right now by an all-white jury. So this stuff is still happening today in Michigan.
Yes.
Boy, and I was wondering if you're familiar with the case.
Right.
So
it's also it's unfortunate. Injustice, for anyone is so unfortunate, and one of the things that I stress to my students or any young audience is the importance of, compassion, the importance of seeing ourselves as brothers and sisters, under the fatherhood of God, no matter where we're from. That we have to have compassion for anyone who's being treated unfairly, that we have to be the ones to right those wrongs in society.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now, what are the ages of your students?
Well, they're college students, so they range between 18 and 20.
Okay. And what are they saying these days about what's going on in Missouri, in the college down in Missouri?
Well, I think that what's happening in Missouri is an inspiration to a lot of young students, just to know that they do have power, and if they see something wrong, that they're able to unite, that they're able to organize, that they're able to set goals. They understand that hashtags don't make them activists, that it's, you make hashtags, you make slogans, but you have to have a goal at the end of all of this. And I think that Jonathan Butler at the University of Missouri just really made such a stand, and he's going to go down in history. 50 years from now, we will find out what all of this meant. What were they able to accomplish?
Yeah, and it seems to be like a really grassroots movement that is catching fire, and moving across the different colleges across the nation.
That's right. And I think it's really, really great, and that our young people should be applauded, for standing up against injustice. That, we want our children, if they see that that there is injustice in any form, that they're able to stand up, that they're able to unite themselves, that they're able to organize, think, be forward thinkers, and, take a stance. And I think that he should be applauded.
Yeah, I hear you.
He and all the other young people, who are galvanizing across the nation.
Now, back in the 50s and the 60s, when your grandparents were resisting and your dad was resisting, right?
Resisting what?
Resisting oppression and racism.
Okay.
At that time, I guess the mainstream media and the general public were very overtly racist and just outwardly saying, no, we don't want to give up our superiority. We don't want to give up and share any kind of equality or any kind of rights with this other race. Mm-hmm. Now today, when you have this thing going on in Missouri, the mainstream media and I guess the establishment of America don't want to come out and say that they're openly racist, but they want to poo-poo and dismiss the grievance of these students. Now, what do you find more? Do you follow what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. I think, it's just unfortunate. And I think if we're able to acknowledge that we have been miseducated, a nation, a world even, that has been miseducated about, the significant contributions of Africa and Africans, people of African ancestry during slavery. If we can just acknowledge and learn, the truths of all of these things, of history and so forth, that that there would be much more unity and respect for differences, and if we look at what was, just in this country alone, it was a barren land before the transatlantic slave trade. And so we have all of these people that make these significant contributions, endured trauma, generational trauma, to cultivate the land, to make it what we all have today. That there are advantages that other people were able to have off of the backs of slavery, and just acknowledging that and giving honor to all of those generations that endured what they endured. If we could just acknowledge and I just think that there's so many advances that we can make.
I'll give you a perfect example, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The people who own the oil industry today would not have gotten to those oil wells if those railroads were not built due to slavery. And now they are profiting from that today.
Right. Well, it's not just that. It's banking, it's gold, it's just so much.
Yeah.
Right. You're absolutely right.
But they got to it first because they owned slaves, and they got to it first.
Right.
And all that has to be
right. Human life. They owned enslaved Africans who endured, such trauma, generational. They just, they made a significant contribution. Yeah. Sometimes I talk about the Holocaust of Jewish people and compare it to the Holocaust of African people. And the difference is, Jewish people knew they made a significant contribution in spite of this crime committed against their humanity. And they teach their children at a young age what it is to be Jewish, the significant contribution Jewish people made, and they vow never to forget, and so that we can all learn from them. In Germany, they don't even believe in the death penalty. How could they? But in this country, we do believe in the death penalty.
Okay, but ILYASAH, today in America, we don't have systematic racism and oppression against the Jewish race, but we still have it against African Americans.
Absolutely, and African Americans were the ones who, cultivated a barren land. So it's just a matter of righting the wrongs of our society, including it in history books. It's not Black history; it's a part of our history, of American history, and and making sure that our children understand. Let everyone feel compassion.
I hear you, but it just seems that it's so systematic that the racism of 400 years in this country is so systematic, and it's still ingrained in the system. And
it's institutional.
Yeah, it's institutional, right? And it's in the police training. It's in the school training. It's and I guess it's better than it was 50 years ago. But the point I was trying to make originally before was, is it better to have overt, in-your-face racism like there was when your dad was struggling, or rather than today for people to say, well, racism does not exist? Those kids in Missouri just, they're just overreacting. They're too sensitive. And, what do you think of that?
Well, I think that we should address that we have to be realistic about what happened, that we have to be honest with the transatlantic slave trade. We have to be honest about all of these things that happened on the soil, We have to be honest about it, and I think that's what the young people are saying. If you don't understand that it was African people who cultivated a barren land, they cultivated this barren land because of all of, what they had accomplished on their own continent, on their own soil, that, we can look at, there's so many things that we can look at. It depends on what it is you want to talk about specifically, but there's just so much.
Well, I'd really like to get into the whole history of your dad again. Get back. I got us a little off track and into current stuff because when you mentioned Michigan and brought back Reverend Pinckney to my memory, because he's in prison right now tonight. You know what I mean? 67 years old, and it's just heartbreaking to me. And anyway, I'm an old softy, I guess, in some ways.
Aww, yeah.
But now back to your dad. We're talking about his childhood. They killed his father.
Ed, when's your birthday?
My birthday's September 9th.
Okay.
You're in July.
Right.
Right, but that's not Gemini, is it?
No, definitely not.
June is Gemini. Okay. Now, what radicalized your dad? What made him want to stand up for his rights?
My father was a man of compassion. Again, it was these values that were instilled in him by his parents, especially by his mother. My children's book goes a lot into these specific values about compassion and care and all of that stuff, and I think it's very important. When you see injustice, you see injustice. My father had impeccable integrity. A lot of people don't realize that he was only in his 20s. When the world heard of Malcolm X or learned of him, he was only in his 20s. He was killed at 39. It was 12 short years to have made an enormous impact, a global impact. Just looking at the work that he did, at the sacrifices that he made, all in search of solutions, so that we could all understand and have a quality life of respect and dignity, human dignity and all of these things.
Let me ask you this, because when you listen to your dad's speeches, and a lot of them are available online today, it's not like when I was a kid, you had to listen to WBI at 3 o'clock in the morning, now you can just go online and find them. This is brilliant stuff. Your dad was one of the most brilliant minds of the century. Not just one of the most brilliant black activists and one of the brilliant activists. This was a brilliant man in his logic and his thinking and his the way he could explain things was just brilliant. Do you ever think he gets a shortcoming? Gets a short shrift for the kind of mind, the kind of thinker that we had at that time?
Say that again?
Do you think he gets a short shrift because they kind of isolate?
A short what?
Shrift. Short. He doesn't get enough credit.
Oh, yeah. I think that some people, look how many people follow him 50 years later. I think that especially this generation, in spite of all of the incorrect, inaccurate portrayals of him in the 50s and the 60s, that today, young people are able to see that he was reacting to, all of this injustice, and not only was he reacting to it, but that he had, strategies that you get to see, his humanity, you get to see his compassion, you get to see his brilliance, you get to see his just so many great things about him.
Yeah, when did you start listening to those speeches? How old were you?
More like in college.
In college?
I went to college. I was 16 years old. And, before then, my mother was overprotective. She didn't, she had experienced witnessing the assassination of her husband. She experienced so much. And I think, just the pain of it all, the trauma, if you will, and wanting to protect her 6 babies and making sure, that we were raised with love and opportunity and, all of these things, that she didn't focus on she didn't focus much on anything negative. or hateful or unjust. So when I went to college, I learned about other things. My mother was very, she gave us so much love, that I have so much in me to give to others, that, she was so giving. She was so trusting. She was so nurturing. She was really amazing mother. I'm grateful to have had her in my life for as long as I did.
When did your mother pass?
1997.
1997. How old was she?
1934, 1997. She was 63.
63. That's very young. Now, how old would your dad be today?
My dad today would be 90.
90. Okay.
Yeah.
But just imagine, like a brilliant man like your father, and you see people running for president today, like Donald Trump and Dr. Carson. Like they can't even put a sentence together. These people, and here you got a brilliant mind like this that that our country could have taken advantage of. That's right. Every one of us could have benefited from this man. Okay, we're gonna have to take a break. We're here at with ILYASAH Shabazz, the third daughter of Malcolm X and Dr. Betty Shabazz. She's the author of Growing Up X and two other books here, which I have pulled up. One is X, a novel, and the other one is Malcolm Little, the boy who grew up to become Malcolm X. And these books are available on the Opperman Report blogspot.com and also in the Opperman Report bookstore. We'll be back with more of ILYASAH Shabazz.
God bless you.
Thank you. And now, a word from our sponsors. Pacific West Bamboo, your premier source for sustainable building material. They provide construction-grade and craft-grade bamboo material for all your indoor, outdoor, and gardening needs. Contact them for event planning and display building as well. 503-839-8126. Or you go to their new website, pacificwestbamboo.com. Or you can contact them on Facebook at Pacific West Bamboo. That's 503-839-8126. Amanda from Pacific West Bamboo was our first sponsor. She's been so good to us, so please support her in return. I want to make everybody aware of our new members section at www.oppermanreport.com. You can go there and sign up for a monthly, quarterly, or yearly subscription. You can purchase episodes one by one. You get full access to brand new original content, new guests, new uncensored interviews, my own investigations and reports, and we're going to be adding sections with documents, images, police reports, either provided by myself or by my guests, or for my own investigations, my own reports. So you can go to oppermanreport.com and sign up there tonight. Strawman. I want to mention Strawman. Strawman is a band out of Toronto, Canada. Good friends of the Opperman Report. They're a trio of guys who share the same mindset most of us here do, and they put that energy into their words and music. So check them out at strawmanmusic.com and drop them a line to let them know that you heard them here on the Opperman Report. We'll be doing an interview with Sean Duffy soon. You can get an autographed copy of my book, How to Succeed as a Private Investigator, by visiting my PI website, emailrevealer.com. We also offer a computer and cell phone forensics. We can recover deleted text messages to uncover infidelity. We offer asset searches, locates, email tracing, background reports, and we can even trace your spouse's email address back to internet dating websites to catch them cheating online. You can reach us at 800-572-9762, or you can email me at emailrevealer@aol.com. New World Mexican Women. Everyone loves the New World Mexican Women, and their line of fine, handcrafted, authentic Mexican jewelry of stone mosaic and abalone stone inlay. In their first book, titled New World Mexican Women, available on lulu.com. They teach you how to make this jewelry, and they have a collection of love letters to their men from their hometown that have immigrated to the United States to find work. They have also published a new book entitled Azukina to the Rodeo. It's about a young girl that falls in love with a rodeo bull rider, and she runs away with him without telling her family. You can find the New World Mexican Women by Googling New World Mexican Women. And you can ask them about their deals on wholesaling, their fine jewelry, and all of the other projects that they have going on. If you'd like to have your business or website advertised here and promoted all over the world on dozens of stations every day, give us a call at 800-572-9762 or email oppermanreport@gmail.com. And now back to our show. Hey, have you guys heard about chaga mushrooms? It's a mushroom that grows way up in the northern forest. Native Americans and Russians have been using it for hundreds of years. It's not the kind of mushroom that you'd eat, but you make a tea with it, and it's loaded with polysaccharides and other unique phytochemicals. And it's supposed to be very delicious, too. Now, you wouldn't guess you were drinking mushroom tea. The folks over at MichiganMushrooms.net have been harvesting chaga for years, and they have built a great reputation for having the best quality mushrooms for the best prices around. These guys are recognized as experts in the field of mushrooms. Check out their Facebook page, Michigan Mushroom LLC, and you can go and order some mushrooms tonight at MichiganMushrooms.net. Tonight, we have with us ILYASAH Shabazz. She's the author of 3 books. One is Growing Up X, X, a Novel, and Malcolm Little, The Boy Who Grew Up to Become Malcolm X. Her website is ILYASAHShabazz.com, which is probably very difficult for people to spell. Do people have a lot of problems pronouncing and spelling your name? Absolutely. Oops. Got you on mute. What was that? I had you on mute there. Sorry. What was that?
Oh, yes. Is it difficult? I don't think too many people would just know how to spell ILYASAH. They spell it so many different kinds of ways. But I also have growingupx.com, and then that way it goes right to ILYASAHShabazz.com.
There you go. That's easy. Growingupx.com. Yeah, everybody can figure that one out. Okay, great. Because now you went to a Montessori school in New York.
I did. I went to St. Joseph's Montessori. That was my elementary school. And all of my sisters and I went to the school. My mother was, I tell you, amazing. So she sent her 6 girls to the St. Joseph Montessori School. And then I went to Master's School, which was an all-girls prep school in Dobbs Ferry. And my other 3 sisters went to the United Nations International School in the city. And then I went to, I graduated from the Hackley School, which is in Tarrytown, New York, Westchester.
And you said before that you started college at 16?
I did. Well, at Montessori, it was such a great school. I mean, it was so, the way they focused on your motor skills, overall development, it was just, amazing. We learned so many different languages. We learned how to add, subtract, divide, multiply, all in one sentence, And so most of us who went to the school would skip 7th and 8th grade and go straight to high school.
Yeah, my daughter went to Montessori up until 3rd grade.
Which one?
Here in Las Vegas, in Henderson, Nevada. Yeah, and now she goes to a Coral Academy of Science. By the way, I tell you,
right.
I want my daughter to interview you. I think you guys get along really good. She's a real activist. My kid is way 10 times
very
more.
Good. That's good.
She's
That's
way
very,
more
very good.
Yeah.
So now I just want to know, what is the temperature like in Las Vegas right now?
For us, it's cold,
Okay.
Yeah, we wear a jacket, 50, 60 degrees out here. It feels cold. It feels cold, though.
Okay.
I was from New York. I told you I was from the Bronx and then Staten Island. But when your blood gets thin out here, if it's 110 in the summer, in the wintertime, it just feels cold.
So around what year, how old were you about when you moved out to Las Vegas?
Oh, I moved out here in 2000. I was 40 years old.
Okay.
Yes, I was New York most of my life. Yeah, I knew Al Sharpton. I was a Yippie. I was an activist in New York City with the Lower East Side with the Yippies, and we dealt with Al Sharpton, Reverend Herbert Daughtry, all those guys.
All of them.
Yeah.
So you've been out there for about 10, 15 years.
15 years. My daughter was born out here, so she's 15 years old. She just turned 15 last week, November 6th, and it's been 15 long years.
And she's already an activist at 15.
Yes, she had her own radio show, too, for a while there. She's on the debate team. She just did a project where she contacted Bobby Seale, the original Black Panthers, and she did a report. She got a 100 on that. And, my kids, and she dragged me out there just last week to the $15 minimum wage thing, supporting Bernie Sanders. What do you think about Bernie Sanders?
I just think it's very interesting. But more important, I think that, when you are a forward thinker, when you are involved in human rights, you're human rights activist, just all of these things, that you instill specific values in your children. And I would think that most of us would want our children, if they saw, if I had a child and they saw things happening to another person and they knew that it was wrong, I would want my child to have compassion for that other person, regardless of their religion, their ethnic background, their sexual preference. Wrong is wrong. You don't want to see someone doing something to another human being. And if someone was doing something wrong, you would want your child to have compassion. So, I have to salute you that you would raise a young girl at 15 who already knows, the injustices that are going on and who already has compassion and care and wanting to make a difference. So I just salute you. I think it's extremely important. Compassion.
Listen, despite my ego, which everybody knows, it's well recognized. I cannot take credit for this. As an infant, as a toddler, this kid, she always knew right from wrong. She always wanted to do right her whole life. And I guess certain things, I kind of explain to her because they're just. But when they're explained to you, they're obvious. I learned about the. Social injustice when I was about 17 years old in high school in New York City. When I was really, although even as a kid, I liked McGovern over Nixon. I could see that was obvious. But the real, the oppression that we're living under and the racism and all that stuff. I really came to understanding of that. I was 17 years old when I came in contact with the Yippies in New York City, and they just opened my eyes. And once I think your eyes are open to this.
Right.
It all makes sense.
You can't turn your back. You can't turn your back on it.
So, now, and you had that with your mother.
Yes.
Now, what about uncles and stuff like that? Because I heard for the first time today that your dad had a bunch of uncles. I didn't even know that.
Well, my father, he had many siblings. He had... now I don't know why I'm going up on a blank, but let's go. So there were 3 siblings before him that his father was married to Mary prior to marrying Louise. So for my father and Louise, their union, they had Wilfred, Hilda, Filbert, Malcolm, Reginald, Wesley, Yvonne, and Robert. So those were 7 children.
Wow.
Right. So they had a big family. And, I usually tell people, I come from a big family, 5 sisters, so there were 6 girls. And, if nothing, it teaches you how to be a good friend. And, you have this great sense of humor. You can get along with people. You see my father being this popular person. Many people like to be around him. He had a wonderful personality in spite of being, caring, compassionate, brilliant, and all of those other things.
But now, after your father's assassination, did your brothers step up, or were they still part of the Nation of Islam?
They were with the Nation of Islam, but my mother sort of just took us away and let no one near us.
And as I understand it, you were whisked away to Harry Belafonte's house or Sidney Poitier's house?
Well, you're right. When my father was, A week prior to my father's assassination, our house had been firebombed.
Right.
And from there, we were very close with Ozzie Davis and Ruby Dee. They're like family to us. And so it was Ruby Dee's brother, who didn't live very far from us, and his daughter was our babysitter, Gail Wallace, and her mom, Antoinette. And so we were staying at their house, and my father was staying at the Hilton. As most people would see in the movie X. You see him staying in a hotel. He's staying in a hotel because he wanted to keep the danger away from his family, his young wife, his babies, who were near and dear to his heart. And so he stayed at smart man stayed at a hotel where there were lots of people, so, you wouldn't bomb a hotel and endanger other people's lives. So, yeah.
So
and then once my father was killed, we stayed at Sidney Poitier's house. And at the time, his wife was Juanita Poitier. And believe it or not, it was Congresswoman Bella Abzug. We moved into her house.
My
mother
really?
bought her house. She reached out to my mother, and she and her husband, because they were, advocates, and they were both attorneys, she and her husband, and they were in the civil rights movement, and they worked for, working to help rid injustice and all of the things that everyone was working towards in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. And so they reached out to my mother, concerned that her home was firebombed, her husband was killed, that she had 4 babies, she was pregnant with twins, and they were concerned about where was she going to live. And so they rallied. They got a lot of the women got together. Many of the artists, I can't even think right now, Juanita Poitier's wife, Ruby Dee. It was a bunch of women. I think Lorraine Hansberry had already passed away. But there were a group of women, and, they made the purchase from Bella Abzug for this house for my mother. We moved in, and then shortly after they transferred it into my mother's name, because I don't know that they would have allowed the sale to go to Malcolm X's wife. So it's so you get to see many of the challenges that my mother went through. And for her to still be this compassionate activist. Nina Simone's daughter, Lisa Simone Kelly, lived with us. And you think 6 daughters are already enough to take care of. But my mother was just so amazing, very compassionate. And so she came and she lived with us, and we all went to camp in Vermont, during the summertime, and came back home and went to Montessori and yoga classes and music lessons and, history lessons and religious lessons and everything. My mother just really instilled so much in her girls.
It's interesting you talk about the firebombing, because and here's your dad, this iconic name, known worldwide, and when they bombed his home.
Right.
That his little babies are sleeping in.
Right, that's right. They threw a Molotov cocktail into the nursery where the baby slept, into the nursery of his home. And, that's enough to say, hey, you think you're so big and bad, but we're going, you're human.
Right.
And quite naturally, a young man, of course he had to be fearful, I mean...
Wait, but not only that, but now you didn't even have clothes. They were doing like a clothing drive and trying to gather up clothing donations for the family.
Well, I didn't know about that, but right. I just think all of that was just, when you want to set an example, and you're like, you're not so tough after all, buddy.
Now, but then even after the death, though, like your mother was struggling. Was there tons of donations coming in from all over, or?
I don't know, but I know that my mother had her nursing degree and a master's degree, and she went and she had her bachelor's degree, and she went, and her nursing degree, and she went and she got her master's degree. She would drive from our home once a week when we were children, from Mount Vernon, New York, to University of Massachusetts at Amherst, and she got her PhD. So, there's just so much inspiration understanding the story of Dr. Betty Shabazz. When my mother passed away, I had to take a step back and look at her as a woman, not as mommy, but look at her as a person and look at all that she was able to do, and just be so inspired and empowered by her model, that I wanted to share, this with others, that, she never accepted no or I can't as answers for herself. She just, was focused, steadfast, persevered, and she triumphed in the end because she was still loving, she was still caring, she was still giving, great sense of humor, she loved music, so it was a wonderful childhood that she gave to us.
And you have no excuse. You know what I mean? If you see your mother doing that, her husband was assassinated, she has 6 kids, all on her own, and then she accomplishes all, what can you really say? Well, hey, life is tough,
Right. And, they did this story on Lifetime that, was absolutely, it was a beautiful story about friendship, about sisterhood, that when you have someone that you can rely on, who understands you, you can share, that it's so much more helpful than living without, the friendship, without the sisterhood, without the bond, without the support. It's a beautiful story, but it was definitely not my mother. My mother was was much more than what was portrayed.
Now let me ask you this. Now, the firebombing, did you ever find out who was behind that?
Yes, of course. You can look in the books, and it's in all of the books of, it wasn't the Nation of Islam. Let's put it like that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So then you think it was like, you're afraid to talk about it? It was like the FBI?
No, I'm not afraid to talk about it, but I just, I think that, you just, what do you think?
Well, I'll tell you what I think. Because I'm having an FBI whistleblower come on the show in 2 weeks from now, Dr. Fred Whitehurst, and when we talked off the air, he said he thought it was the government, the FBI, who killed your dad, and who was probably the firebombing too, I would suspect. Right,
that's right. And there, we have this film that we're working on with a couple of people that were interviewed, and they were part of the whole thing. And they'd say, but I could tell you that it wasn't the Nation of Islam. My father talked about going to France, and France not wanting him there because the assassination was supposed to take place in France, and they didn't want the blood. They didn't want the blood of Malcolm in history. That it was in France or on France's soil. And so my father said that, just from that alone was very clear that it wasn't the Nation of Islam, because the Nation of Islam didn't have that kind of power, that reach.
All right, that makes sense. Yeah, they couldn't have pulled that off in France.
Right.
But in Harlem...
They couldn't have orchestrated in France, right.
But in Harlem at the Audubon Boom, now you were there that day, right?
That's right.
But you were just like a little 2-year-old.
Baby.
Yeah, and no memory.
No memory.
Now, what kind of memories do you have? Because I can remember when I was 2 years old. I can remember stuff of my dad carrying me around and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, this is what I say in Growing Up X, that I wasn't quite 3. Okay, so it wasn't like I was still a baby, but I wasn't quite 3 years old.
Yeah.
And there's things about my father I remember. I remember his voice. I remember his beautiful, these big teeth. I remember a smile. I remember my blue and white rocking chair. I remember my beautiful brown doll. I remember having cookies with him. So there's those flickering images that I remember. Do I remember conversations? Obviously not. But when I see photos of us, like there's this one photo that I have here right now, in my office, and it's me just looking straight into my father's eyes, or me sleeping on his chest, or just, things that, to me are very, just wonderful, beautiful reflection, because I always wonder what did he say? Because, if you have a baby, you talk to your baby because your life is, my father knew that he wasn't going to live a long life. And so he's got photos with my sister, with my sisters. When I come across them, I'll send it to whichever sister it is. And I found some photos of my father and Kabila, just the two of them, him walking her, or whatever, and then some photos of me and my dad, and they're just, they're really wonderful and special because you see his humanity. He was a young man. He was a human being, and look at what he did. He had a reaction to the injustices. He didn't walk around, with a chip on his shoulder. He had a reaction to anyone being treated unfairly. If it was the church bombing of little children, if it was nonviolent protesters, with dogs being sick to them or fire extinguishers, whatever it was, he had a profound reaction. If it was elderly women, if it was women in general being disrespected, whatever it was, he had a profound reaction, and he tried to build up people who have been oppressed for so long, who have been told that they didn't have history, who were told, inaccurate things about their history. There was no such thing as Tarzan, but, you had people in the 50s thinking Africa was this place where Tarzan lived, that all Africans were barefoot with sticks in their noses, and instead of understanding that the pyramids or that they were refined and industrious African people, on the continent, and that was the reason for them being enslaved, that they were scholars, that they were doctors, that they were priests, that they were farmers, that they were people, and that they were enslaved, that they were not already slaves. They were enslaved human beings that were brought here and endured trauma for generations. But look at all of what they contributed to our country. Look at all of what we're able to, have today. And had it not been for them, we would not be here. So it's a matter of honoring them, putting their stories in perspective, including them in American history and world history, and setting the truth to all of these false stories so that there can be a sense of respect for everyone. So I am absolutely proud of, those young students who take a stand, that they stand up against injustice. This young man refused to eat food. That is a sacrifice, and we have to applaud that. A sacrifice to stand up against the injustice. We cannot take it anymore. We cannot, we have to, at some point, we have to correct the injustices of our history, that we have to tell the truth about these injustices. We have to tell the truth about history and allow everyone, dignity, honor, and all of the things that are deserving.
Amazing. Another thing people need to remember is that your mom was carrying twins at the time of this assassination.
Mm-hmm.
So it's amazing how far you've come. Let me ask you a question now. Now, your older sisters, how much of a childhood did they have with your dad?
Well, everybody was, like my oldest sister was 6. Okay. But I would say February, my father was killed, and in November, she would have been 7. And my next sister was 4. In December, she would have been 5. I was 2. In July, I would have been 3. And so then we have Gamila, who had just been born, and so she wasn't quite 1 year old. She would have been 1, in July. And then my twin sisters, obviously, they were not born at all. So my mother had a lot of little toddlers, and you can just imagine, she was a young woman herself, and to see her young husband, killed in front of her, and to have these babies, and then to have been pregnant with twins, was a challenge, to say the least. But, look at all of, look at what, she became and contributed and everything else. I mean, she went on and got her PhD. She could have, and that says a lot about her, her value system.
It absolutely does. Now, was she involved in any activism after the assassination?
Absolutely. She was, a women's activist, women's liberation movement. One of the things that, I think was, really beautiful about my mother, it speaks a lot about who she was, is in the 70s, my father was killed in 1965. So in the 70s, she had a lot of babies, right? And my mother developed a young mother's educational development program. And that was for young women who would find themselves unwed and pregnant. And instead of having their education interrupted and sent south, like her mother, to have a child, and then you don't know that this person is going to be able to go back to school, that they would be able to go to school and not feel shunned by society or ashamed by people that all of these young girls are pregnant. They're continuing their education. But not only that, she was very thorough. Once they had their baby, then there was the daycare center that she established in Mount Vernon that they were able to then, after their babies were delivered, to have their babies taken care of at the daycare center. My mother was on the board for the Westchester Daycare Council, but that they would have a place to send their babies to be taken care of while they were completing their education. So, that says a lot about my mother.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. I'm surprised we don't have more of that kind of thing now today, but I guess...
Well, you have all of these programs that were, there was more money put into incarcerating young people than there were, after school care and all those after school programs that we need to find young, we adults need to make sure that they are, that we have them for our young people.
I hear you. Okay, we're here with ILYASAH Shabazz, the third daughter of Malcolm X and Dr. Betty Shabazz. She's the author of Growing Up X, a novel, and Malcolm Little, the boy who grew up to become Malcolm X. Is there one more book that I missed it?
No, those are the three. I have another one that's coming.
Okay, what's the one coming?
But it's not out yet.
Okay. Listen, we'll be right back after these messages with a little bit more of ILYASAH Shabazz. How are you holding up? You think you can give me another half hour maybe?
How about 15 minutes?
Oh, you got it. Thank you very much.
Okay.
We'll be right back after this with my favorite guest, ILYASAH Shabazz.
You're so sweet.
Okay. And now, a word from our sponsors. Pacific West Bamboo, your premier source for sustainable building material. They provide construction-grade and craft-grade bamboo material for all your indoor, outdoor, and gardening needs. Contact them for event planning and display building as well. 503-839-8126. Or you go to their new website, pacificwestbamboo.com. Or you can contact them on Facebook at Pacific West Bamboo. That's 503-839-8126. Amanda from Pacific West Bamboo was our first sponsor. She's been so good to us, so please support her in return. I want to make everybody aware of our new members section at www.oppermanreport.com. You can go there and sign up for a monthly, quarterly, or yearly subscription. You can even purchase episodes one by one. You get full access to brand new original content, new guests, new uncensored interviews, my own investigations and reports, and we're going to be adding sections with documents, images, police reports, either provided by myself or by my guests, or for my own investigations, my own reports. So you can go to oppermanreport.com and you can sign up there tonight. You can start listening tonight. Strawman. I want to mention Strawman. Strawman is a band out of Toronto, Canada. They're good friends at the Opperman Report. They're a trio of guys who share the same mindset most of us here do, and they put that energy into their words and music. So check them out at strawmanmusic.com and drop them a line to let them know that you heard them here on the Opperman Report. We'll be doing an interview with Sean Duffy soon. You can get an autographed copy of my book, How to Succeed as a Private Investigator, by visiting my PI website, emailrevealer.com. We also offer a computer and cell phone forensics. We can recover deleted text messages to uncover infidelity. We offer asset searches, locates, email tracing, background reports, and we can even trace your spouse's email address back to internet dating websites to catch them cheating online. You can reach us at 800-572-9762, or you can email me at emailrevealer@aol.com. New World Mexican Women. Everyone loves the New World Mexican Women, and their line of fine, handcrafted, authentic Mexican jewelry of stone mosaic and abalane stone inlay. In their first book, titled New World Mexican Women, available on lulu.com, they teach you how to make this jewelry, and they have a collection of love letters to their men from their hometown that have immigrated to the United States to find work. They have also published a new book entitled Azuquina to the Rodeo. It's about a young girl that falls in love with a rodeo bull rider, and she runs away with him without telling her family. You can find the New World Mexican Women by Googling New World Mexican Women. And you can ask them about their deals on wholesaling their fine jewelry and all of the other projects that they have going on. If you'd like to have your business or website advertised here and promoted all over the world on dozens of stations every day, give us a call at 800-572-9762 or email oppermanreport@gmail.com. And now back to our show. Welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. Tonight we are joined by ILYASAH Shabazz, the third daughter of Malcolm X and Dr. Betty Shabazz, the author of 3 books. You can find them in the Opperman Report bookstore. Growing Up X, X a Novel, Malcolm Little, the boy who grew up to become Malcolm X. We'll be right back with our guest in just a second, but have you heard about chaga mushrooms? It's a mushroom that grows way up in the northern forest. Native Americans and Russians have been using it for hundreds of years. It's not the kind of mushroom you eat, but you make a tea with it, and it's loaded with polysaccharides and other unique phytochemicals. It's supposed to be very delicious, too. You wouldn't guess you were drinking mushroom tea. The folks over at MichiganMushrooms.net have been harvesting chaga for years, and they have built a great reputation for having the best quality mushrooms for the best prices. These guys are recognized as experts in the field of mushrooms. Check out and like their Facebook page, Michigan Mushrooms LLC, and visit their website. You can be ordering mushrooms tonight, MichiganMushrooms.net. But like I said, tonight we have ILYASAH Shabazz, the third daughter of Malcolm X, one of the great minds of our times, one of the great activists and resistance fighters and heroes of our time. ILYASAH, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. Now, what would you recommend to young people out there today who don't like what they see and they want to do something to resist and to make change?
Right. I don't know if it's resisting. I don't know what are we resisting. I think
really, because I'm always searching for a word, and I've settled on resisting. Because I feel like we're under oppression and we have to resist this oppression.
But I don't think that some people don't even realize that there's oppression.
Yeah, I know. That's a problem too.
It is, but I think that sometimes when we use these words, it can't be compared to the oppression during the transatlantic slave trade, and I don't really want to get into all of that, but when we use words like oppression, when we use words like racism, when we use these words that it's like I just think it's quite interesting, but I think that what is exemplary is when we see this young man, Jonathan Butler, who took a stance. And then when we see a whole football team who supported him, they understood that they weren't being treated, that they weren't being treated fairly, that there was a lot of injustice on campus, that they understood a lot of these things that were happening to them, and no one was doing anything about it. And so recognizing, understanding that when we want change, we have to understand the roles that we play individually and collectively in society. That sometimes we think that we're going to just sit back and we're going to wait for someone to do something instead of realizing that we're the ones that, that we have to do something, that each one of us is accountable and responsible for our lives and for whatever it is we gave to society or however we lived our lives in society. That you can't see someone being treated inhumanely or their humanity not being respected and think that life is going to be great for you. That we have to do something about it. And again, it's applauding the young people who are coming together across our nation. They're coming together in spite of their ethnic, religious, sexual orientation. In spite of all the differences, they're coming together as one, recognizing, our humanity. And so I think our young people should be applauded.
But how would you direct them to tell them, like, if they want to do something, what would we say? Well, here's a good, like your dad would come up with a strategy.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think, again, understanding the importance of history, looking at what the young people did in prior generations and doing that. And it's just a matter of coming together with like minds, organizing, strategizing, planning, executing, just do it.
And one of the things I'm doing right now with my kid, is we're organizing around the Bernie Sanders campaign, because the people who show up at these events and the people who show up at the rallies, they're like-minded people. And they're way more radical than he is. Okay, and these are intelligent people. They know what's going on. And I'm not saying that Bernie's the solution to everything, but we got these people, and they need to be directed and motivated and mobilized. So now,
that's right. That's right. You're absolutely right. It's being informed and informing those around us and coming up with a plan and doing it.
What do you think of these Black Lives Matters, these kids who... It's a pretty large movement.
It is. It's a large movement. I think it's an important movement, and I think it's a great movement. When you see so many... My goodness, when you see so many young people just being senselessly, brutally killed.
Unarmed.
Right. I don't understand it. I don't understand anyone that... I don't understand, this being insensitive. Senseless, brutal killings. I don't understand it. But it's been like this for such a long time. And it will continue to be this way until we address it. So I, again, applaud young people for understanding that they can stand up to injustice, that they can make a difference. The only way we are going to have change is when we we set out and become those change agents. I
hear you. Now, let me ask a question. And again, back to Mike Brown, Black Lives Matter, Ferguson, right? Here we got come on. It was so obvious. It's an unarmed guy. If at worst it was a fist fight or whatever, the kid's shot. And then there was all kind of witnesses that show this kid hands up, all kinds of stuff, right? Then we have a federal grand jury that comes in and there's no indictment, a federal investigation, right? Does it concern you, given the history... when people like Al Sharpton come in, given his history of working with the FBI, that perhaps it's not a good direction for the people who really want justice to be taking?
I don't understand your question. I think that whenever we see anyone who is being targeted being killed, and not only today, but the history of, the killing. Look at the history of slavery, the history of injustice. It's just, at some point we have to say enough is enough, right?
Right. We have to say enough is enough, and I think that the methods we've been using up until today sometimes are not in our best interest.
The methods that okay.
You know what I'm saying? I'm saying that this idea of bringing in the federal government, it's in federal grand juries, federal Department of Justice investigations, where there's never an indictment following up, doesn't seem to be the solution. And I almost see that as being a trap.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
So what do you think we should do about it?
Well, I think that when we see these organic movements, like in Ferguson, where the people in that neighborhood saw that something was seriously wrong, and they went out in the streets, and they did not leave the streets, okay, because they knew something was seriously wrong, and they put their lives on the line to resist that, to react against that. And then I'm concerned when these national leaders come in and say, okay, let's channel this movement into a federal investigation, which turns out to be a dead end.
Then I think it's our responsibility to make sure that it's challenged until we get whatever. I think that's important to set goals.
Yeah.
And that you don't stop until your goal is met. So it's not just one person's responsibility, it's all of our responsibility. It's not just my father's responsibility or Dr. King's responsibility or Frederick Douglass's. It's not just one person's responsibility, it's all of our responsibility. It's your responsibility, it's my responsibility, it's the next person's responsibility. And I don't think we can point our finger to one person.
Okay, I got you.
So it is getting very late over here in New York. It has been my honor and pleasure to talk to you for as long as we have.
No, thank you for giving.
We probably went a little bit longer than we planned, but it has been my honor to talk to you. I hope that I hope that I was able to give you a little bit of of some kind of information. And I look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Listen, thank you so much. I know you gave me extra time. You told me at the beginning, before the show, how tired you were. You were working, I think, 24 hours straight or something crazy like that. And I can't thank you so much. This is definitely my favorite guest and my biggest guest that I've had on the show in a year easily, and I can't thank you enough. God bless you. And your family, your sisters and your brothers, your uncles, everyone who, and all the great work your family's done for the service your country, your family has given to this country, to all of us. Okay, I cannot thank you enough for that.
Thank you very much.
And the legacy of your family and your name, and you have my blessings. Okay, and thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. It means a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, Ed. Bye-bye.
Good night. Oh boy. Okay, there you had ILYASAH Al Shabazz, the daughter of Malcolm X. Oh boy. Well, yeah, it was supposed to be a 2-hour show. Okay. But right before the show, she said she was really tired and stuff like that and couldn't put in the full 2 hours. So, what are you going to do? Listen, we had a great time and it was a great guest. I kind of feel bad at the end because I did bring up the Al Sharpton stuff, and I know that I have my problems with Al, Reverend Al, who I knew as a kid. And I just feel that my position on Al Sharpton is well known. I've done some shows on it, about his history working with the FBI and working for the GOP and the Republicans and stuff like that. But I can also understand why people have to get along with other people too as well. Okay, let's see. Got a lot of stuff planned for you. I got a whole long rant I'm going to be doing tonight for 1 hour. So I just got to make it from now till then. Okay. We got a new Bernie girl calling in tonight, Mariah Sandoval, who is a local model and activist, and who's going to be giving us our Bernie update this week. Got a link to her Model Mayhem page on Opperman Report blog, blogspot.com. That's Mariah Sandoval. You can go there and check out her picture and her link. And actually, Mariah actually has a Bernie bikini. She has some bikini shots there on her website. So we'll be getting to her sometime around 7 p.m. So we got to make it from now until then. It seems like the chat room's died too. I guess I'm here all alone. Maybe I'll sing some songs for you. So we got tonight going on here, this thing in Paris, where there's been this big terrorist attack, this shooting in 6 different locations. And I don't know if everybody's heard about this, but Donald Trump had made this tweet earlier tonight around 5 p.m., right before I went on the air. And he made some comment about how there's so much gun control in France. And isn't it ironic that they got the shooting going on over there? So the ambassador from France in New York City did a direct tweet back to Trump on his Twitter feed, calling him a vulture. You know? So Trump's not having a good 24 hours. If you guys caught that 90-minute tirade he did last night of calling Ben Carson, Dr. Ben Carson, a child molester practically, calling him a pathological and comparing him to a child molester, that was pretty outrageous stuff. But what I find interesting in the recent Donald Trump meltdowns that have been going on is how there was this incident in Missouri where the college professor resigned, and Trump says he was calling him, "Oh, that was disgraceful. That was weakness. He shouldn't have resigned. I should have been the principal of that university, and it's never would have happened." Which is very ironic, because Trump did have a university. He was the head of a university, Trump University, which for 6 years never issued one single diploma and was shut down by the state of New York for being a fraud and a con. And it fascinates me that Trump has the guts and the cojones to go out in front of this and bring up that he should be the president of a university. When he was the president of a university, they got it taken away from him. And nobody says a word. No one says a word about Trump University. But you can Google it. It's been shut down. First of all, you can't just start a corporation in New York State and call yourself a university, just like you can't start a corporation, call yourself a hospital or a law firm or any of these kind of things. You can't do it. It's against the law. Okay? You just can't do it. But here he's going on. He creates this Trump University, and basically it was a telemarketing company where they were charging people $35,000 to send them inside information on lenders and where to get repossessed properties, all kind of nonsense like that, bankruptcies, and stuff you could find on the internet for free. And they were charging these huge sums, and then when people would buy them, they'd get these calls from these professors who were telemarketers trying to get them to buy more stuff. So that was the whole Trump University, and it was shut down. But it just goes to show how some people like to sabotage themselves. And there's something, they have good momentum going on, they have something good going on, and they think they don't deserve it, and they want to sabotage it. Okay, like Trump, this was a cakewalk. I think Trump could be president of the United States. I think it would be a disaster for this country. I think it would be horrific. But I think he could have done it. All right, and I think he's throwing it away. And I think he's throwing it away on purpose. Okay, because of his guilt. Okay, because here's a guy. Okay, we're gonna be getting to more stuff about this. I had a whole thing going on for the after show. If you listen to Trump, and he's talking about Dr. Ben Carson, okay, and how he doesn't understand Ben Carson's life story. See, Ben Carson's narrative is supposed to be, hey, he's a tough kid from the ghetto, and he tried to stab a guy. He had terrible anger problems. He was pathologically angry, but he was healed and delivered by the forgiveness, the salvation message, Jesus Christ, that he repented, he was forgiven. Now his salvation, he was delivered from these conditions of anger and stuff like that. Now he's a new man. He's a new creation in Christ. See, Trump has no clue about that. Trump has no understanding whatsoever about the redemption, forgiveness, salvation message of Jesus Christ, of the Church of Christianity. He doesn't understand. He doesn't know what it is. And it's foreign to him, which is ironic, because here's a guy who has everything that, all the wealth you could want. He has everything that wealth can offer. He has everything that fame can offer. A lot of ways. He has a lot of power, too. He's a powerful guy in New York City. And he has all these things. And you can see he's into a lot of lust, too, and he has all this. But he doesn't understand. He's never been exposed to the salvation message of Jesus Christ. It's just totally foreign to him. And that's why he's criticizing now Dr. Ben Carson in this way, foolishly, I believe, because you got all these evangelicals down there in Ohio and North Carolina and New Hampshire. They understand this message. But here's a guy with everything you could want, all the money, all the women, all the fame, all the power, and he's never been exposed to this message where he has an understanding of it, which is probably, by the way, I want to add, probably the most satisfying thing you can experience on this earth is the forgiveness of your sins and assurance in eternal salvation. But he doesn't understand it. At the same time, you see him sabotaging himself by bringing up, opening right in your face, he wants to bring up Trump University. And what else does he bring up? Okay? He brings up pathological, that Dr. Ben Carson is pathological, comparing him to a child molester. Now stop and think, guys. Who has the child molester skeleton in his closet? Donald Trump, because of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. It's right there. It's right in front of him, man. It's right. You'd think he would want to avoid these topics. He would want to avoid the topic of a convicted sex offender, his buddy. I've known Jeffrey for 15 years. He's a great guy. He likes them young. He sure likes his social life. He's a lot of fun to be with. That's Donald Trump. Donald Trump even making these comments about having sex with his own daughter. I'd even date she could pose for Playboy. I'd even date, if she wanted, this is some weird stuff, guys. All right? But let's stop and think. What do you call it? What's the first thing he brought up? What's the first thing he brought up in the debate? Megyn Kelly asked him about calling women names and stuff like that. What's the first thing he brought up? He brought up Rosie and his fight with Rosie. Okay? Now I want everybody to go back. What was the fight with Rosie O'Donnell about, between Rosie O'Donnell and Donald Trump? It was about that Donald Trump was bullying one of his Teen USA pageant people, right? And Rosie O'Donnell objected to that. And what did she call him? She called him a snake oil salesman, a sleazebag, and a perv. Okay? Because these are all widely known rumors about Donald Trump. Okay? Now you'd think, again, that he wouldn't want to be talking about that. That he'd kind of want that to keep that on the down low. But he's sabotaging himself. He's self-destructive, okay? Got that self-destructive gene. And he's trying to sabotage himself. And that's my theory about why he's bringing up now with Dr. Carson, but the stuff about being pathological, bringing up the topic of child molestation, bringing up a university, that he should be the president of a university when he was the president of a university, and they shut it down because it was a scam. These are all the scandals in Donald Trump's closet. And interesting too that he would bring up who's that other guy, Rubio, and Rubio's bad with his credit cards. Oh, the guy overspends. Who's the guy that had to declare bankruptcy 4 times? Donald Trump. And so it's almost like so either there's something going on where he's throwing it in our faces and he wants us to know, or it's subconscious, Either he knows that the fix is in so bad and that the media is not going to talk about any of these topics, which could be possible, I don't know. Or he's subconsciously trying to sabotage himself. So that's my theory there that I'd like to throw out there. As a matter of fact, if anybody wants to talk about that, give me a call, because I got about a half hour to kill before I get into my actual after show that I had planned. We're going to be taking a call with the new Bernie girl. This week's Bernie girl, Mariah Sandoval, who's going to be telling us about events coming up with Bernie Sanders. Me and Vic, we did some events this week for Bernie Sanders. We went to the Bernie Sanders speech. He had a rally here. I think it was Monday. It was like Monday the 9th. We went down to the College of Southern Nevada, the northern campus, which is off of Cheyenne. And it was at 7:30. It was 7 o'clock on Monday, I think it was. But you had to get there like 5 o'clock. The doors opened at 5, so you had to get down there and wait in line. But we had really, really good spot. We were about 5 people deep at the stage. I got some really good pictures and stuff like that. And, it's a lot. I tell you, I haven't been doing these things in a long time, but Vic's really into it. And I'm excited about the way she's, that she wants to get involved. And she wants to volunteer with the campaign. And she's interested in politics, just like I was when I was her age. And when I was her age, I didn't have anybody who was willing to take me to these things. My parents never would have took me to a campaign event, not for a second. So I'm glad that she wants to do it, and she's really enjoying it. It's a good project for us to do together, so we're enjoying that. I got to tell you, seeing these people in the crowd, these are very, very smart people. Okay, these are people. They're not dumb people at all. And they're not naive as to politics and the way the world is actually run. They very understand about the 1%. They understand about police brutality. They understand about all these things. And none of them think Bernie's perfect either. I think a lot of these people are thinking the exact same way I'm thinking. Okay? And have the same purpose in mind. It's also a fun crowd to hang out with, okay? Especially if you're like a single guy. There's a lot of really, really pretty girls at these events. And there's not that many guys, and a lot of guys there are gay. Okay, so you gotta really. The odds are really good at these Bernie events. So I would recommend people to go down there and hang out and check them out and support. Okay, so that's as much as we're trying to do here with the whole Bernie Sanders thing. Oh, you know what? Good time to take a commercial break, and then we'll get back with more of the after show. We had our guest tonight, which was ILYASAH Shabazz, the daughter of Malcolm X, the third oldest daughter. Her books are Growing Up X, X a Novel, and Malcolm Little, the Boy Who Grew Up to Become Malcolm X. And what we'll do is those books, the links are on the Opperman Report, blogspot.com, and also oppermanreport.com in the bookstore. And when you go to oppermanreport.com, don't forget to check out the members section, okay? And we really need the support. The support's been winnowing away, even though I'm doing more shows. I got a show coming up on Monday. I'm going to be recording with Dr. Peter Dale Scott about Adnan Khashoggi. He has an upcoming event he's going to be doing about JFK assassination. We're going to be talking about that. And a lot of he has a lot of stuff he's done about 9/11 and the oil industry and stuff like that. So we're going to be getting in with him as well on Monday. Dr. Peter Dale Scott. Okay, we'll be right back after these messages. And now a word from our sponsors. Pacific West Bamboo, your premier source for sustainable building material. They provide construction-grade and craft-grade bamboo material for all your indoor, outdoor, and gardening needs. Contact them for event planning and display building as well. 503-839-8126. Or you go to their new website, pacificwestbamboo.com. Or you can contact them on Facebook at Pacific West Bamboo. That's 503-839-8126. Amanda from Pacific West Bamboo was our first sponsor. She's been so good to us, so please support her in return. I want to make everybody aware of our new members section at www.oppermanreport.com. You can go there and sign up for a monthly, quarterly, or yearly subscription. You can even purchase episodes one by one. You get full access to brand new original content, new guests, new uncensored interviews, my own investigations and reports, and we're going to be adding sections with documents, images, police reports, either provided by myself or by my guests, or for my own investigations, my own reports. So you can go to oppermanreport.com and you can sign up there tonight. You can start listening tonight. Strawman. I want to mention Strawman. Strawman is a band out of Toronto, Canada. They're good friends of the Opperman Report. They're a trio of guys who share the same mindset most of us here do, and they put that energy into their words and music. So check them out at strawmanmusic.com and drop them a line to let them know that you heard them here on the Opperman Report. We'll be doing an interview with Sean Duffy soon. You can get an autographed copy of my book, How to Succeed as a Private Investigator, by visiting my PI website, emailrevealer.com. We also offer a computer and cell phone forensics. We can recover deleted text messages to uncover infidelity. We offer asset searches, locates, email tracing, background reports, and we can even trace your spouse's email address back to internet dating websites to catch them cheating online. You can reach us at 800-572-9762, or you can email me at emailrevealer@aol.com. New World Mexican Women. Everyone loves the New World Mexican Women, and their line of fine, handcrafted, authentic Mexican jewelry of stone mosaic and abalone stone inlay. In their first book, titled New World Mexican Women, available on lulu.com, they teach you how to make this jewelry, and they have a collection of love letters to their men from their hometown that have immigrated to the United States to find work. They have also published a new book entitled Azuquina to the Rodeo. It's about a young girl that falls in love with a rodeo bull rider, and she runs away with him without telling her family. You can find the New World Mexican Women by Googling New World Mexican Women. And you can ask them about their deals on wholesaling their fine jewelry and all of the other projects that they have going on. If you'd like to have your business or website advertised here and promoted all over the world on dozens of stations every day, give us a call at 800-572-9762 or email oppermanreport@gmail.com. And now back to our show. Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. Hey, what do you think of those chaga mushrooms? Huh? It's a mushroom that grows way up in the northern forest. Native Americans and Russians have been using it for hundreds of years. It's not the kind of mushroom you eat, but you make a tea with it, and it's loaded with polysaccharides and other unique phytochemicals. And it's supposed to be very tasty, too. You wouldn't guess you were drinking mushroom tea. By the way, Chris says he mixes it in with his coffee. He makes some kind of coffee out of it with the chaga mushrooms in his coffee. The folks over at MichiganMushrooms.net have been harvesting chaga for years, and they've built a great reputation for having the best quality mushrooms for the best prices. Now, these guys are recognized as experts in the field of mushrooms. Check out and like their Facebook page, Michigan Mushroom LLC. And MichiganMushrooms.net is their website. You can go on there right now tonight. You could have mushrooms in your tea by Monday morning. Tuesday morning, probably. You know, the quickest you can probably get it. Also, too, you know what, guys? Do me a big favor. Go to, when you're on Facebook, like the Opperman Report Facebook page as well, too, because it helps me reach more people. And all the stations we're on, like Wolf Spirit and Awake and PSN, and these new guys over at Mutual Broadcast Network, like their page, too. That helps out because when I promote the shows, it reaches more people. You know, it'll go on your page, you know, and other people see it. And by the way, too, I know I tag everybody a lot when I'm promoting the shows, and sometimes I lose track because I'm posting on all different stations, so I'll tag the same person sometimes twice, sometimes even 3 times. I'm really sorry about that, guys, but, you know, it's a lot of, you know. You guys know I'm making a mess out of this whole thing, right? I can hardly keep up with what I'm doing here, and I'm making a big, giant mess. So, I forget what we were talking about. But I think we were talking about Donald Trump a little bit there, and about the Bernie events. And the Bernie girl is going to call in. So Tuesday night, I guess it was, because now we get these updates because we're getting active here locally because Vic's turning into a teenager. I mean, she wants to protest. And we were invited to go out to the... I'm also trying to do more local shows and promote local activists and artists and people, models here, and filmmakers and people in the arts, So we were invited to go out to the march to raise the minimum wage for $15. So we got our signs. Vic made a sign. We were rushing around to do it, too. It was right after school. So I had to pick up Vic from school, and we had to go get a sign and some markers. And she's doing the sign in the cars. We're driving over there. It's all the way at the other end of town. Downtown Las Vegas by Fremont Street in front of City Hall. So it was a pretty big crowd. It's about 500 people there. All, good-looking crowd, bright people, well-dressed. And there was someone there from the union, I forget which union, but there was someone there from one of the unions. It was like one of the culinary unions or something like that was there. Or Teamsters, something like that. It was the International Brotherhood of Teamsters was there. Local senator was there. And some local activists were there as well. And then there were some Bernie representatives, the people representing the Bernie campaign. So a photographer came over from the Review Journal, and he took a picture of me and Victoria. And it's kind of interesting, we were in the local paper here, the Las Vegas Review Journal. I posted the picture. And you can see my face. And I'm looking at the crowd. I'm kind of, a cynical, older-looking guy, And then you see Victoria, standing next to me, holding her little handmade sign, and she's sort of much more optimistic and hopeful of what can be accomplished with these kind of actions, taking these kind of street activist kind of protest rallies kind of stuff. And there were a lot of young people there, and there were a lot of older, experienced radicals as well. A couple of things I noticed from my old days of being, involved in these kind of things is one is the sound system is so much better quality than it was when I was a kid. Really incredible sound quality, the way they have these things set up today. And also the quality of the signs and the posters. They have balloons. They have all this kind of stuff, this kind of prep work that they didn't have when I was a kid, that's for sure. Okay. Another thing is the obedience of the crowd and the cooperation with the police. That's come a long, long way from when I was a kid in high school and in my early 20s when I was doing this kind of stuff. There's a lot of communication between the protesters and the police, the organizers. There's a much more active parade marshals, that keep track of the marchers and stuff like that, keep everybody on the sidewalk and all that kind of stuff. So we all get together and we start marching down. We marched down from City Hall to Fremont Street, chanting through the streets. It was a huge crowd, about 500 people, really stretched out. And when we got to Fremont Street, everybody was so supportive, all the tourists and cab drivers and bus drivers and all the people in the street. Everybody was extremely supportive of the $15 an hour minimum wage. Now, what we did, this is a pretty bold crowd, because they went right into one of the casinos, which is all private property. They can kick you off, for any reason. And they marched right into one of the McDonald's in the casino, and we held the end of the rally was held in there. And again, everybody in the casino was so supportive, raising their drinks to us and saluting us, coming over with, big smiles on their faces. Everybody was really happy. Now, one thing I noticed that was interesting is the casino security guards and the cops that were in the casino were really nervous. This was a mild crowd. This was a cooperative crowd. it was a lot of home care workers. You know, the myth about this $15 an hour minimum wage thing is that these are all fast food workers. The majority of the workers making minimum wage in this country are 77% white single mothers, okay? And they're not working all in fast food. They're home care workers, they're receptionists, clerical workers in office, temp workers, cashiers, big box stores, Walmarts, supermarkets, cashiers. All those things now are all minimum wage. So there's this myth out there where they say, well, they want $15 an hour to flip a burger, and that's a high school job for high school kids. That's not what it is. That's not what it is. That's not what it is. When you have your kids in daycare, your kids that are in a daycare center, they're making minimum wage there. When you salespeople who make sales for telemarketers, all these jobs are minimum wage jobs. Okay, it's not just, you can't replace. See, the myth is, well, these fast food burger flippers, they're gonna get their jobs replaced by, you're gonna go in there, you're gonna be able to order by pushing buttons on a computer keyboard, and then they won't have jobs. They're talking themselves out of jobs. It's all nonsense. That's a distraction. They're lying to you. Okay. You cannot replace the guy that mops the floors over at McDonald's is not going to be replaced by a computer. The people who flip the burgers aren't going to be replaced. Maybe the guy who takes the order. And even then, the special orders, the special situations, you need managers. You're not going to totally take away every job with automation. Okay, so don't worry about that. Now, then they say, well, if you raise the minimum wage, the cost of everything is going to go up. I heard one person say that a carton of eggs would go up to $10. A gallon of milk would be $8 because of the minimum wage. You know, that is so ridiculous. But I've run businesses, and I got to tell you, man, you know, when I had the beeper company, I had a lot of employees, you know. We had 3 locations. I was in the mall. You know, we had several locations. I had outside salespeople. We had installers, all kind of people. I paid minimum wage, and even below minimum wage, too, for cash. I'd pay people cash and commission, stuff like that. Payroll is an expense, okay, but it's not the biggest expense, and it's not the biggest effect on pricing. Okay, payroll. The rent is more of a factor. Taxes are way more of a factor on pricing than payroll is. Okay, because you can always hire and fire people. You always get rid of people and give them less hours. There's all kind of adjustments you can do with payroll. So it's not going to increase prices dramatically. It would be a benefit to the local economy because people that are making, if you can get them up to $15 a week and they're making $600 a week, which is still slavery, guys. Okay, that's still a slave wage. Okay, you're still working just to pay for gas in your car and to feed yourself and to house yourself. It's $600 a week. Okay, it's not, you're not gonna live in luxury on $600 a week. Trust me. Okay, but you're spending that, and everyone who's making $600 a week is spending that entire $600 a week. That money is recirculated right back into the economy immediately. And as long as you don't spend it over at Walmart, it's not going into the hands of 6 people that rule the world. The 6 members of the Walton family that possess 40% of this country's wealth. So if we get this, you know, the little adjustments we need to make in life, guys, you know. Minimum wage, you increase that. You don't spend the money over at Walmart. You spend it in local businesses and you know, in local shops and stuff like that. You know, what a huge difference you could make to the economy. Just, you know, your own little self in your own little world. So much can be done. So, but one thing that struck me about the fear in the eyes of these police and these security guards when they saw these home care workers marching into their casino. These like a lot of little old ladies and stuff, you know? And, you know, these weren't, you know, anarchists marching in there. These were workers, people that work, you know, working people who have jobs. They get to work every day, you know? Some of them were students from a high school. And you could see the fear in these cops and the fear in these security guards. And it makes me wonder, what is it? I'm not afraid. I'm there with the same people, in the same crowd. You don't see me all looking around and nervous and stuff like that. Someone's going to hit me over the head. What is it that makes these people want to become security guards or want to become cops if they're afraid of their own shadow? and they're afraid of communicating with the person next to them. I'll tell you something interesting, because one of the cops was saying, okay, we'll give you 5 more minutes, And I said, well, my fries won't be ready in 5 minutes. I want to stay till my fries are ready, And just the idea that I was like questioning this guy, he's like, I got all nervous, like, there's going to be a shootout between us, So kind of crazy confrontation's going to happen over these, the next 5 minutes that we're not leaving this McDonald's. We're in there total like a half hour anyway. It's nonsense. The whole thing, So, do these actions do any good? Does it really do any good to put on this protest out in front of City Hall? You got 500 people together. They march down. They cause a little scene. When then you have the news media present it as fast food workers striking for more money, and everyone thinks it's fast food workers. So it has to be a several-pronged attack here, where you have the people in the street doing these actions. And I think that you need to shut down some streets too. You need to shut down some highways, and cause a little agitation. You don't have to burn down the whole place yet. We have plenty of time for that in the future. But we do need to cause a little agitation. Shut down some traffic. Shut down that McDonald's for a couple hours. And that costs them some money. You got to make your presence known. But then on the other hand, you also have to have people in the media explaining that it's not about fast food workers. And it's not as simple as they try to make it sound. Because all they got to do is just take what we're doing and just throw it away. But if these are fast food workers, fast food workers, all you got to do is they're going to be replaced by computers. Because people can make... And people think, the average person thinks, yeah, that's true. I can just place the order myself for my car on a push button. I don't need this guy asking me, what's your order, please? But in reality, you do. Okay, because right now we got the person there, right, taking the order, and it takes 10 minutes to get that order to the guy. So it's not going to get any simpler. Okay, people are going to hit the wrong button, all kinds of nonsense is going to happen, and things you're going to have a big mess. Just like when you have a self checkout, okay, at some of these supermarkets and stuff, but there's someone there who's keeping track of these 7 or 8 different checkout stations. You're going to need humans all the time. You're going to need humans to mop up. You need humans to replace little sugars in the packets and stuff like that, do all that kind of stuff. You need humans to get the meat from the freezer and bring it to the fryers, all this kind of stuff. So this idea that they're going to put themselves out of a job by getting a decent living wage is a myth. It's a lie. They're lying to you. They're trying to fool you. Don't believe them. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Oh, I got a big show coming up in the members section. I forgot all about this. Good thing I got these notes. I got to arrange this. But I'm going to be interviewing this family out here, the Sheehan family, who lives here in Henderson, Nevada. And their family has owned property up at Area 51 before Area 51 was there. They were up there. They had little mining town, and they had like a ranch, with horses and, what do you call it? What do you call those animals on a ranch? Cattle, whatever they call it. So they had a ranch up there, and they had like mining. They did mining and stuff, and they were there before Area 51 came in. And the story is fascinating too, because I heard some of it. When Area 51 came out there, they just sent some surveyors out there with no equipment or anything. They would have died out there, exposure. But this family took them in and let them sleep in their barns and stuff. And that's the only reason why Area 51 got built to begin with, because this family took these people in and helped them out with the conditions and the elements. So they were there before Area 51. Now they're using eminent domain to kick this family out because Area 51 wants their land, and they're taking it over. And it looks like they're going to succeed. But then they're negotiating over the costs and the prices and stuff like that, how much they're going to get paid. But they have a lot of interesting stories to tell about what's been going on up there, okay, in reality, not the fantasy stuff that you hear about. A lot of stuff about toxic waste dumping, practice shooting, where they were like shooting over their heads when the kids were outside playing and stuff like that. All kinds of crazy stories. So they're going to be coming on and be telling us the real story about what really goes on up at Area 51. And I'll give you a little what do you call, sneak preview, is they know a lot of stuff about all the rumors that you hear about what goes on up there. So, and these people have nothing. They're no friends of the government right now. They're fighting with the government. They have no reason to keep any secrets from us and no motivation. And we're going to be talking to them, and we're going to be hearing the truth about what's been going on up at Area 51. Now, that's in the members section at OppermanReport.com. And, guys, if we don't get some members... Oh, but, hey, you know, a lot of people thought I quit last week. Did you know that? Yeah, a lot of people listened to the after show last week, and they thought that... I actually got emails during the week of people saying they're sorry to hear that I quit the show and that I wasn't coming back and doing any more shows. Because I was so down last week about a lot of things, and I know I'm not making myself clear all the time about what I'm upset about, and I complain too much. I know I complain way too much on the after show, and I apologize for that. Because let me tell you something, you know, I'm like a kid in a candy store. You know, I get to talk to May Pang, I get to talk to Malcolm X's daughter. You know, next week I'm talking to Billy Hayes, the kid from Midnight Express. Week after that, Dr. Fred Whitehurst, you know, who ran a forensic lab. You know, this guy's like a, you know, big shot to me. You know, and people think, you know, I get this whole thing about me and my ego, this and that. You know, you should hear, you know, if you were ever to talk to these guests, you know, and how we talk off the air and stuff like that, if you were to tell them, no, I got this ego, they wouldn't believe you for a second, man. I'm so shy around these guys and intimidated when I talk to these people. And, you know, like Dr. Fred Whitehurst, the reason why he didn't come on the show all this time is because, you know, I was afraid to bug him. You know, we were doing like phone tag, you know, and I felt embarrassed that I was bothering this guy and wasting his time. So for people who think that, you know, I'm this kind of egomaniac, you got the wrong idea, man, really, of everything that I'm trying to do here. You know, I get frustrated. I get cranky. You know, I get frustrated and I get cranky. But trust me, I love doing this show and getting to meet and talk to the people I get to meet and talk to. And you wouldn't believe it, but it's not just what goes on the air either. Because I got the show, I'm able to contact people like Bernie Getz, you know, from New York, the subway vigilante, you know. He won't come on the show, but he talks to me off the show, you know. And you get to talk to people, you know, and I was doing all that research about the Bill Clinton show that we did with Robert Morrow. Getting Robert Morrow on is cool too, you know. But in researching for that show, I'm in touch with people who are really hooked up with the Clintons, you know, and really, you know, have known them their whole life. And, you know, I've met and talked to a lot of people with a lot of information. You know, and I get this information and I tuck it away. You know, I can't always talk about it on the air right away. There's things I can't say, you know, that I would love to. That I will one day. You know, I'm tucking it away for future use. And, you know, and I do that thing where some people are paying attention and know what I'm doing. Like, I'll mention a little bit in one show and a little bit in another show, and you got to piece it together yourself. Although as the shows, we're adding more and more shows, it's more difficult to get that all going, you know. But there's a lot of that. There's a lot of those clues and those questions that are in the May Pang interview. So you got to go back to the other John Lennon interviews and listen to all of those and piece it all together. And when I ask a question, you know, it's for a reason. You know, a lot of times it doesn't always make sense. So just sometimes it even makes sense to the guest. Okay, but there's a lot of information I'm trying to get out of here. But what I want to make clear is I love the audience. I really do. I sound like Donald Trump, right? I love you all. Okay, I really do love you. I love the audience. I love the sponsors. We got the best sponsors in the world. Amanda from Pacific West Bamboo, the New World Mexican Women, this guy Chris and his wife from the Mushroom People, Strong Man Sean Duff, who helps out with the website and all this stuff like that. Is that all the sponsors we have? I think that's it, right? Yeah. They're great people. They help out so much behind the scenes, you know. Like right now, Amanda's getting together with the New World Mexican Women, and they're selling jewelry together to help support the show and stuff. And we're working on other projects in the background. But I love doing the show. I love getting to meet the people I get to meet and talk to on the show. I wouldn't be able to meet and talk to them any other way, you know. So don't think for a second that I don't love doing the show. I do. And don't think I don't appreciate your support. I do appreciate your support. It's kind of funny because, one of the things I always complain about is I get too many emails, get too many messages on Facebook and stuff, right? I was on YouTube this week, right? And I found out that there's a place in YouTube where there's comments that are sent to spam that aren't public. So I've never read these comments before. And I go there and I find there's like 300 comments. So, there's like, I got all these extra, and I'm reading these comments, man. People are so angry. People are just so angry about different things, insulting each other and making these crazy accusations and stuff. People just need to get along. Okay, well, listen, we're coming to the end of the show here. Next week, I got Billy Hayes coming up from, Midnight Express. Now, I'm going to reboot everybody who's listening on Spreaker. We're going to say goodnight to PSN. And I think that's it. Yeah, PSN. Everybody else is carrying us 3 hours. So I'm going to say goodnight to PSN. The people listening on Spreaker, I'm going to reboot and restart. And we're going to call up, what's her name? The Bernie girl. Mariah Sandoval, who's our new Bernie girl, who's going to be updating us this week about Bernie events. And she actually went to college and wrote a paper in school about Bernie. But for now, good night, PSN. I'll see you next week. Let me turn you off over here. No, that's not PSN. Over here. Okay. Good night, Angel. Okay, go over here. Turn off PSN. I know which one it is now. It's this one. Okay. And I'm going to say, you guys over there at Awake and Shazazz and all you guys, I'm going to play a little commercial over there. And I'm going to reboot Sam.